Gen Z has a drinking problem, just not in the way you might think. Gen Z is actually the first generation to be into abstaining from alcohol. Let's lock in. A World Finance report shows that Gen Zers drink on average 20% less than millennials, who also drink less than older generations. Almost 86% of Gen Z say their mental health matters just as much as their physical health when deciding whether they want to drink. And many in Gen Z watch their parents, baby boomers, Gen X, develop health issues from excessive drinking. So yeah, Gen Z got the memo. Alcohol is bad for your health.
We told you recently about a steep decline in partying among young people, 70% down. And by the way, they're not drinking either. New polling from Gallup shows that Gen Z and millennial Americans are less likely to drink than previous generations. In fact, the data shows that only half of adults under the age of 35 drink alcohol at all at any time, even a little bit. That is a major decline from the early 2000s, when the drinking rate was 72%, more than 2/3 for that very same age group.
There's all these new sober bars cropping up across the country. Hecate in New York City, Sands Bar in Austin, the Sober Social in Atlanta, just to name a few. And besides health reasons, this also comes down to another hot topic among Gen Z, affordability. If you go out for a 3-drink dinner, that's over $60 with a tip, and you didn't even get the dinner yet. And on paper, this all sounds great. Gonna have a better liver, tighter budgets, fewer regrets. But is the sobriety movement among Gen Z good news, or is it a sign of maybe being socially maladjusted in other ways? Fewer drinks may not automatically mean a healthier society. For example, is the lack of drinking possibly indicative of Gen Z's social isolation? Leave it to Scott Galloway to make the point you didn't expect.
I think young people need to drink more. I don't see drunkenness. I see togetherness.
Drink more alcohol.
Yeah, drink more. I think they need to get out and drink more. My advice to young people is to go out and drink more and make a series of bad decisions that might pay off. I think that we need more togetherness, more people, more sex, and more random encounters. And absolutely, people need to be in the company of strangers more and more. And I think young men are sequestering. We're turning into a different species of asexual, socially isolated, lonely people who become shitty citizens.
The point is that social isolation can be very damaging. And yeah, a night out with friends is expensive, but it's much better that we foster fellowship rather than retreat into our little cocoons and never see anyone or do anything. The director of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, George F. Koob, echoes this, and he says, alcohol tends to be a social drug, even for young people, so part of the decline in underage drinking could be related to less in-person socializing. And maybe we're just shifting to another vice, like marijuana. There's a theory that some members of Gen Z didn't go totally sober, but we just traded out alcohol for weed. And although it's still unclear whether the decline in drinking among Gen Z has to do with a preference for drugs, marijuana could be part of that pivot. It's recreationally legal in 24 states.
The holiday season could mean hangover season for some, but there's a growing trend to ditch the liquor and light up instead.
So there's a new trend emerging, and it's called California Sober. I'll admit, I never heard about it until 24 hours ago, but it basically means people rely more on cannabis to curb drinking habits. Researchers at Brown University are looking at this very issue. A study published this month examined whether people felt any change in their desire to drink thanks to cannabis. The researchers found that when the participants smoked the cannabis with THC, they drank less alcohol than when they smoked a placebo.
Nearly 80% of Americans live in a county with at least one cannabis dispensary, and cannabis has been put into drinks being marketed now to younger consumers. National Review's Andrew Stuttaford also worries about Gen Z's lack of drinking because of what it could do to America. He argues that the emerging anti-drinking agenda is today's nanny state campaign. Stuttaford also says that all these social media posts we're seeing about the sober curious, about zero-proof drinks, mocktails, sober dating, zebra striping, which I guess is alternating alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks, because balance, dry January, sober October, they could actually be part of an effort to clamp down on, well, fun. Stuttaford poses the question, could this top-down desire to help pave the way for a tougher anti-alcohol agenda, like likely higher taxes on spirits or more regulation on producers when the political mood shifts. A Gallup survey conducted in July found that only 54% of American adults admit to drinking alcohol, some 10 percentage points below the number for most of the last 25 years. And Gallup notes cautiously that this coincides with a growing belief among Americans that moderate alcohol consumption is bad for one's health. Now the majority view for the first time. It used to be tobacco and cigarettes, and now, okay, it's alcohol. As a member of Gen Z myself, I can say that, yeah, there's a lot more educational material on what alcohol will do to your liver, to your sleeping patterns, your memory, to name a few. It can make you aggressive, violent. It's not exactly a benign substance, but two things can be true at once. It can be bad for you physically, but to Scott's point, it's good for facilitating human interaction.
The second worst thing to happen to young people is remote work. 1 in 3 relationships begin at work. This is where you find friends, mentors, and mates, and especially young men need the guardrails of a workplace. But in my view, the worst thing that's happened to young people is the anti-alcohol movement. I've had Huberman on, who I'm a big fan of, and Attia on, and my point is that the risks to your 25-year-old liver are dwarfed by the risk of social isolation.
And America has a pretty long-standing culture of casual alcohol consumption that is pretty well self-regulated. It's very common to go to a happy hour after work and have a drink with your colleagues. Less common to go to a weed shop together for a little kumbaya. But what do you think? Is the sober curious movement a good thing for our society? Or do you agree with Galloway and Studiford that this is a slippery slope either to social isolation or to high taxes and no fun? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and for more, check out my articles at nationalreview.com.